Llywydd. The people of Wales spoke clearly when the First Minister, Senedd Cymru, visited communities across Wales and asked people what mattered to them most. Today, I'm here to show how we're turning those words into action. We're making homes warmer, bills lower, and taking concrete steps to tackle climate emergency. And I want to outline exactly what that means for families across our nation. This decade must be a decade of action on climate, and we are backing that commitment with more than £30 million this year alone in our Enhanced Warm Energy Homes Nest scheme. Our approach is comprehensive and targeted. We're tackling fuel poverty through a two-pronged strategy, providing expert advice to Welsh households while delivering physical improvements to our least energy-efficient homes, which cost more to heat. Our renewed programme, launched in April, is already making a real difference. Here's what it means. If people are struggling with fuel bills, our advisors will work with them to identify the most effective improvements for their homes. They'll provide practical tips to boost energy efficiency, reduce bills, and guide people towards additional support services where needed. It might be better insulation, it might be solar panels, or even a heat pump. I want to be clear about who can get this help. We've widened the net. If a household income is below 60% of the typical Welsh income, it could qualify for help. This is about helping everyone who needs support, regardless of their circumstances. We know that for families across Wales, heating isn't nice to have, it's an essential. That's why since April, we've helped more than 100 vulnerable households who were in crisis as a result of broken boilers. Real people with real problems getting real help when they need it most. And we're helping people in social housing too. Just last month, I visited Denbighshire's Llys Esgob Morgan development. The Housing Association, Clwyd Allen, have used Welsh Government funding to improve energy efficiency through both traditional installation methods and innovative projects. That means warmer homes for people in Denbighshire. And here's what's making me particularly proud. 90% of the money we spend improving our social housing is going straight to Welsh businesses and Welsh workers. That's local jobs, local supply chains, and local families benefiting directly from our investment. We have a proud record. We are reviewing Part L of our building regulations to ensure new builds in Wales are more energy efficient, with the aim of driving up the use of low-carbon heating systems like heat pumps. We've also poured over £2 billion into making our social housing better over the last 20 years. That investment got us to where we are today, with our social homes hitting an average EPC rating of D. But we're not stopping there. This year kicks off our new, bolder standard, one that demands every single social home in Wales reaches EPC C by 2030 before pressing on to EPC A, the highest level of energy efficiency. That means stable bills and a smaller carbon footprint for thousands of Welsh families. The First Minister and I recently visited the remarkable Passive House development in Cardiff. These homes are so well built that they barely need heating at all. That's the future we're building with our investment. By 2030, every social home in Wales will meet high energy efficiency standards. That's not just an environmental target, it's a commitment to delivering lower bills year after year for thousands of families. Our £260 million optimised retrofit programme, which has spent £70 million this year alone, doesn't just help us tackle climate change, although that matters enormously. It's also about making sure nobody in Wales has to choose between warming their home and feeding their family. For homeowners who want to make changes but can't afford the initial costs, we have interest-free loans through our Green Homes Wales scheme. The uptake has been fantastic, with over 2,500 expressions of interest to date, evidence that people across Wales want to make their homes fit for the future. My colleague Jane Hutt will be speaking later about additional support that could put money back into your pocket, but I won't steal her thunder. What I will say is this: there are billions in unclaimed support that should be helping Welsh families with their bills, and we want people to claim what they're entitled to. Let me finish with a message for anyone sitting at home worried about their energy bills or wondering how to make their home warmer. Please pick up the phone and call the Warm Homes Nest scheme. It's a free phone number. The Welsh Labour Government is ready to help you figure out what support is best for you. Because when we talk about living in warm homes, we're talking about dignity. We're talking about children who can focus on their homework instead of shivering. We're talking about families who shouldn't have to choose between necessities. This is what action looks like: help that reaches the homes and families that need it most. Every warm home, every reduced bill, every family helped. It's more than a policy on paper. It's real change happening right now across Wales, making people's lives better. That's delivery in action. Diolch yn fawr.
Mark Isherwood.
Yeah, well, I've been raising this for over 2 decades here, yet fuel poverty remains a deep, enduring issue across Wales, estimated to impact virtually all our lower income households. With energy prices set to stay high throughout the winter, well above pre-crisis levels, many households will struggle to keep warm and well. There's an urgent need to improve the energy efficiency of fuel-poor homes in Wales with energy bills that are permanently low. Yet at the current rate of delivery of the Welsh Government's Warm Homes Nest scheme, just over 1,600 homes per year, it will take well over a century to improve the energy efficiency of the homes of all our lower income households currently estimated to be in fuel poverty. The sector continues to call on the Welsh Government to significantly increase the funding of its Warm Homes programme. As they state, this is currently insufficient to address the scale of the challenge of fuel poverty in Wales. How do you therefore respond to the call at last November's joint meeting of the Cross-Party Group on Fuel Poverty and Energy Efficiency and Cross-Party Group on Housing for the Welsh Government to allocate the consequentials from the UK Government's Warm Homes Plan into its Warm Homes programme to support this, estimated to result in around £170 million in Wales? As the Office of Older People's Commissioner has stated, boiler repairs or replacements in necessary circumstances should be available to all eligible applicants without working heating or hot water where low carbon heating is not yet viable or appropriate, irrespective of age and health. However, within the first 6 months of operation of the Welsh Government's current Warm Homes programme, launched 1st of April last year, some eligible households were being turned away for measures if their home was not yet viable or appropriate for a heat pump. This was very concerning and in sharp contrast to how National Energy Action and partners understood the scheme intended to operate, risking leaving eligible low-income households living in the least efficient homes with no working heating or hot water. They therefore strongly recommended this issue was resolved as a matter of urgency. Thankfully, in response to their feedback, the Welsh Government has agreed to ensure that all eligible Nest applicants can now receive a boiler repair or replacement if they have no working heating or hot water, meaning that while heat pumps are still available, eligible households may, for now, still be able to get a replacement boiler or repair as an alternative alongside other insulation and energy efficiency measures. However, how do you respond to Fuel Poverty Coalition Cymru's concern that the Welsh Government is only committed to this necessary provision until the end of March, and to their call for this to remain in place throughout the duration of the programme? Care and Repair does extensive work both in tackling fuel poverty and supporting income maximisation for older people in Wales who are living in some of the most energy inefficient and therefore cold properties. How do you respond to their call for resource to promote benefit uptake direct to local campaigns run by local organisations in order to improve awareness on entitlements and help reduce stigma and complexity surrounding the benefit system? After scrapping winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners, the UK Labour government urged pensioners to check if they could be eligible for pension credit to secure the winter fuel payment. An estimated 130,000 older people in the UK will miss out because they're just £500 over the income threshold to claim pension credit. How do you therefore respond to the call by the Older People's Commissioner for Wales for action to resolve the issue of the cliff edge, whereby older people ineligible for pension credit because of incomes just above the threshold miss out on support entirely? And to the call from Care and Repair Cymru for the implementation of a safety net grant for disrepair for vulnerable and low-income households, including those who fall just short of pension credit eligibility, to keep them safe, warm, and out of hospital. Finally, how do you respond to concern expressed by the Older People's Commissioner for Wales in Evidence, the Equality and Social Justice Committee consultation on fuel poverty in Wales that, quote, other concerns with the Warm Homes programme include the scale of the scheme, particularly given rising energy prices and the cost of living crisis, the overall levels of funding provided to undertake activity, and the processes for monitoring, evaluation and reporting on progress.
Diolch, Mark. And first of all, I'd just like to put on record my thanks for the work that you've done on the cross-party group. And I know that I've been fortunate to come along to that cross-party group just before Christmas to talk about and hear from stakeholders directly as well about some of the issues that you've mentioned today. In terms of just to highlight some of the things that we are doing. To date, the Welsh Government has invested more than £251 million to improve home energy efficiency through the Warm Homes programme, and Nest has helped more than 82,000 lower-income households by installing measures in their homes, and more than 210,000 have contacted Nest to receive that free energy efficiency advice. And this is something that the Welsh Government have been committed to long term, because between 2009 and 2021, we've helped over 21,000 households through RBED, invest in that European funding to improve housing conditions in our most deprived areas. With regard to the issue around people needing support in crisis situation, which I think is a really important one. As I mentioned in my statement, and as you touched on, Mark, as well, I had agreed to allow boiler repairs or replacements this winter to help all households eligible for Nest who find themselves in immediate crisis without heating or water. Householders must meet the current Nest eligibility criteria, and no changes are being proposed to those criteria. But all householders who meet that Nest eligibility criteria and who do not have heating or hot water can receive a boiler repair or replacements. And householders that have their boiler repaired or replaced through this route will still have their house assessed for further energy efficiency measures, with a view to making the house ready to move away from fossil fuel heating in the future. So that is something we are doing at this time. People who are feeling right at the crisis point, we are looking to see what we can do in the future to make sure those efficiencies are put in at a later date. So, you know, there are a lot of things going on in that space. And with regard to work with UK government, obviously officials work closely both here in Wales and at a UK government level. Receiving pension credits is the key for many older people in Wales that unlocks their entitlement to that winter fuel payment. And the Welsh Government, as you know, had a really strong campaign to get eligible pensioners signed up for pension credit, and that ensured that eligible pensioners received winter fuel payments. The UK Government continues to deliver the Warm Homes discount, which does protect householders on lower incomes and ensure they can heat their homes with £150 off their energy bills. But I know my Cabinet colleague Jane Hutt has been really doing a lot of work in this space, and it is important that we also work across government to do everything we can to ensure that everything that people are entitled to is taken up.
Sian Gwenllian.
Thank you very much, Dirprwy Lywydd, and thank you for the statement. Now, given that the Welsh Government's Warm Homes programme is the cornerstone of efforts to mitigate fuel poverty here in Wales, there are two issues which are an immediate cause of concern for me and for many others too. The first of which is the level of investment in this programme. Only around 1,700 homes per year can be supported within current funding limits, but there are over 200,000 households living in fuel poverty in Wales. So you can see why I am concerned about the level of investment. So can you give us a little more detail about the budget for next year, but also the budget more long term? And is there any additional funding coming from Westminster? And what funding mechanism, particularly capital funding, alternative funding methods are being considered, and how much of a priority is considering those alternative funding mechanisms for the Welsh Government? And the second issue that's a cause of concern is a lack of clarity on the policy objective of the programme. What exactly are we trying to do here? Are we trying to use the programme in order to get to zero net more quickly? Or is Warm Homes trying to tackle directly the fuel poverty crisis, or is it somehow seeking to do both things? And in some cases, both things could go hand in hand, but it can also lead to conflict when you are trying to achieve two policy objectives within a single programme, and certainly if there is no clarity as to what you're seeking to achieve. For example, whilst heat pumps are important technology for decarbonisation, they aren't always appropriate for all homes, and neither are they affordable for all homes in terms of their maintenance and running costs, because of the higher operational cost as compared to gas boilers. Now, we could go into all sorts of discussion as to how unfair that is in terms of the current system relying on the price of gas, but it does mean that at the moment that there is some conflict in terms of those two policy objectives, and I would like to hear a little more from you on that issue. It is encouraging that the boiler repair scheme has been restored, but it is concerning that it will only run until March this year, or there is only certainty until March this year. So I would like to know what will happen from this April onwards. Is this boiler repair scheme going to continue, or will you return to what was in the original plan? Now, clearly, we need a long-term and flexible approach which takes into account the particular needs of homes and households. And finally, from me, this issue of monitoring, evaluating and considering the appropriateness of the programme. Now, monitoring and assessment continues to be unclear, making it difficult, therefore, to assess progress or to set out areas for improvement. But what we do know from stakeholders, and what I know through my casework, is that there are concerns about qualification and the accessibility of the next programme, and the lack of an area approach which was available previously, which helped to target support effectively. And in addition to this, there are problems in terms of referrals, which means that some households which do qualify do still slip through the net, and therefore simplifying the programme and making it more accessible would improve the situation. So what steps do you have in place as a government to simplify the programme and to ensure that the support gets to everyone who is eligible to receive it?
Diolch, Sian. And I'll try to address a number of the questions in your contribution. In terms of the Warm Homes programme, as I said, we've invested more than £13 million this year in that new Warm Homes Nest scheme. We've got eligible households are going to receive that bespoke package of measures to insulate, decarbonise their home, leading to those lower energy bills and to moving them out of fuel poverty. And this sort of goes to what you're saying about the aims of the scheme. Our scheme is taking a fabric and low carbon first approach to improve the long-term energy efficiency of the least thermally efficient low-income households in Wales. So it's a two-pronged approach to an advice service and through physically improving the homes of the fuel poor. The scheme is in its infancy. And I think officials will be reviewing progress to ensure that the scheme meets the primary objectives. So I think it is ongoing. We will review things. We're always looking at gaps. That was one of the things that were picked up around the gas boiler repairs. So we are listening. We have put that investment to support those people in crisis point to, as you say, heat storage pumps are not fit for everybody at the moment, but then we'll be, as I said in response to Mark, we're going in there. And we're also looking about what more can be done to, in the future, make sure that things could actually be ready for storage heater potentially, or the other technological developments that happen. Just to say as well, in terms of the programme, I do see within my own postbag as a constituency MS and as the Cabinet Secretary as well, when people from this chamber write to me as well about particular issues. So I'm always keen to pick up where things, perhaps there are some gaps, and what we can do to look at filling some of those gaps as well with other organisations that might be able to help sometimes. For example, I know that Care and Repair are able to support people as well in particular circumstances. So there's lots going on within that, but I am always keen to listen to everybody if there are gaps. We have to be aware. We've got to a point. We've had the first stage of the scheme, and things can be a bit more complex now when we're looking at people's properties and what needs to be done in those properties. So we are aware of the challenges, but we are doing everything that we possibly can to support people. And I think I'm really keen that as many people in this chamber help promote the advice that is available, and that advice is independent. In terms of the area-based approach, again, the new scheme is in its infancy. The second phase 2. So again, officials are reviewing that progress to ensure that demand-led element of the programme meets that primary objective in tackling fuel poverty and the climate emergency.
Jenny Rathbone.
Thank you. In the main two postcodes for my constituency, CF23-24, 2019 and 2021 were the bumper years for retrofits. But we're talking 105 and 103 in each of these years, which is obviously very welcome for those homes, but it's a drop in the ocean compared with the huge need there is in the private sector, which is where all the coldest homes now are because of the area-based scheme that we've had in operation. So obviously we need to get people ringing that free phone number 0808 808 2244, because people who have money need to be doing the right thing both for their energy bills as well as for the environment, because there is no logic in going on heating the birds. But I spoke to a tenant in the private sector last Friday, and she only had one radiator working in the whole of the 3-bedroom flat. And we have to get these private landlords engaged with the scheme to ensure that people who are living in the most expensive rented homes are actually getting a much better deal. So what can we do, A, to get those who have money to do the right thing for the environment as well as for their heating bills, but also how can we engage with private landlords on getting them to upgrade their buildings, because bringing them up to EPC-C is a very long way from where we are at the moment. They're nearly all E, and the worst ones are F and G. But in addition to that, we obviously need an area-based scheme, because these individual things are as nothing to the number of R-bed homes that were retrofitted in the thousands.
Thank you, Jenny, and you raised important points there. In terms of the decarbonisation of private homes and just the advice that people can get, again, this is the advice line that you mentioned. It's free, a free phone line, and you can access it on the website as well. But I think it's really important they'll offer tips and offer ways forward when they come to speak to you, which I think means that people are able to have that trusted advice, which I think is so important in this area. The Green Homes Wales scheme, operated by the Development Bank for Wales, supports owner-occupiers on their decarbonisation journey with access to zero-interest finance and retrofit assessments to help understand the work required for their home. So we're really looking forward to seeing the impact of Green Home Wales scheme. Again, it's a really key step in enabling homeowners to make those green choices for their homes. But the point you make around private landlords, is very well made. I think, we're doing a huge amount in terms of what we want to do with our social homes. We're putting a lot of emphasis on that, but there's still a huge challenge that we're up for, which is, looking at, the private rented sector, which is, and all the privately owned properties that we know have to get to that particular standard. But I'd be very interested to perhaps meet with you to talk about this in further detail as well.
Senedd Williams.
I don't think we've seen the urgency of action and scale of investment needed really to tackle fuel poverty through the Warm Homes programme, although that is the government's flagship policy to do so. And I think that's in part because the Welsh Government's picture of fuel poverty is stuck in the past. The outdated estimates which form the basis of its understanding of fuel poverty don't reflect the harsh reality faced by far too many households across Wales today. They predate the cost of living and energy crisis, Brexit and the pandemic. The understanding is based on the 2008 Living in Wales survey and the 2017-18 Wales Housing Conditions survey. And that survey is meant to be updated every 5 years. But here we are 8 years on, approaching 9, with no update and no sign of one. And while on the subject of delays, we can't ignore the Tackling Fuel Poverty plan. Is it still the ambition of the Wales Government to review it? Do you agree, Cabinet Secretary, interim targets provide a clear roadmap to 2035, opportunities to monitor progress, and so will you ensure the government fulfils its statutory obligations to set those targets? And do you agree that current data on fuel poverty is outdated? So how are you going to rectify that?
Diolch, Senedd, and thank you for those important points. I think that the Welsh Government has shown over many years the ambition that we have here to tackle this. We've put money into our Warm Homes programme. We've invested in that. That's people getting help who need it the most. I think our new approach, which is that fabric worst approach, is important because we're really getting to those people who I think are crucially important in terms of who need it the most. And I think we've tried to do what we can to extend the eligibility criteria, as you will have seen from our new scheme. You know, we are helping people, and let's say it's been a long-standing commitment of this government over many years. We've learnt from those programmes as well. You know, we've seen programmes such as the Innovative Housing Programme, which ran from 2017 to 2022. Over £155 million of capital grant and loan was committed to fund over 70 developments across Wales and deliver about 2,000 affordable low-carbon homes. You know, do I want to see more? Absolutely. You know, I do want to see that. And that is something that we are, you know, working hard to do. I think, you know, your point around numbers and having the data, you know, is an important one. And, you know, I know that these are discussions that are had with Cabinet colleagues as well.
John Griffiths.
Diolch, Deputy Lewis. Cabinet Secretary, it's always a challenge to make these schemes fit the circumstances of all of those who could benefit from the help offered. I have constituents, for example, who live in a stone house. They're off-grid, they're in their late 70s. The man cares for his wife, but he himself is disabled and, in fact, awaiting a knee replacement. They qualify for help through Nest, but because they're off-grid, their preferred option of a freestanding oil burner is not available under the scheme, as you've told me in a letter that responded to my raising of the case. Heat pumps would be prohibitively expensive for them, and at the moment they're burning coal, and you've kindly engaged Care and Repair to help them with the effort and the difficulty of lighting fires and dealing with fires on a daily basis. You do say in your letter, Cabinet Secretary, that you're in talks with British Gas for those in their circumstances who are off-grid and not able to have heat pumps. So I wonder if you could continue your efforts for this particular couple, because coal fires are rather difficult for their circumstances and disabilities, and they really need a different solution.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, John, and thank you for raising that case, and I thank everybody who does raise particular cases. You know, I appreciate been having this conversation through some correspondence as well. And I think when issues are raised, that means that I am able to sort of think about how can we do more to, you know, if there are gaps within schemes. And, you know, as I said, within the letter, you know, we're in discussion with British Gas on how customers, such as the constituents that you've raised, can be supported. So I look forward to you know, staying in touch with the general points as well. And as I said, I think, you know, there are aspects where perhaps they're not eligible for the scheme, but there are other pots of advice available, other things like Care and Repair who are able to help them practically at the moment. But I think that's why it's important to have those conversations with the Nest scheme as well, and they're able to point people in the right direction as well as giving that impartial advice, so that, which I think is really important for people to actually have that impartial advice to make sure they're making the right choices for themselves.
Luke Fletcher.
Diolch, Deputy Llywydd, and thank you to the Cabinet Secretary for the statement. And I'd also like to thank her as well for her engagement on the Arbed issue in Cairo. I know that she's taken a keen interest since taking up the post and has spoken to a number of stakeholders around trying to resolve this issue. And that's really where the thrust of my question is going today. When I mention the plans of Welsh Government around warm homes to constituents, especially in those areas, the answer I normally get back is, oh, here we go, another Welsh Government scheme. There's no way that I'm signing up to that. And I'm using diplomatic language in conveying that to you. What we have here now is, as a result of failures of previous programmes, is a complete lack of trust in Welsh Government programmes within this specific field. So my question to you today is, how do we actually restore some of that trust amongst these communities? Some of these communities really do need to see their homes retrofitted. It's going to be of benefit to them, but it does require, I think, a body of work from Welsh Government to promote that to those communities and to restore that trust, because right now that trust doesn't exist.
Yeah, Diolch, Luke, and thank you for the engagement that we've had over this as well. And I've had discussions with Hugh Ranker Davis as well on similar lines. Just first of all, I'd like to put on record again, how difficult and how I understand how hard it has been for people in Cairo and the distress that has caused. As you know, we have awarded grant funding to do that scheme, but you're absolutely right. It's really important that people have that trust. And, I take that very seriously, along with, I know you do too, Luke. So just to perhaps, first of all, highlight a couple of updates around Cairo. So just to say, I had a meeting just before Christmas with Bridgend County Borough Council for an update. I'd also asked officials to follow up as well, and they're going to have an update from Bridgend County Borough Council about the properties in mid-February, so I'd be happy to keep you and others up to date with that. There is a residents' meeting scheduled on Wednesday the 22nd of January, which you might know, and I'm looking forward to an update following that residents' meeting. And I think that's partly how we can build that trust within that group of people, which I think, and which we have talked about, which is so important. Just to say that so far 8 homes have been completed, 47 homes have had the EWI removed, and 19 are currently having EWI removed through January. So retrofit designers and contractors are currently quality checking the properties. Designs are being completed and works to reinstall the insulation on rendering takes place over the next few weeks as well. But it is absolutely important we learn from those schemes and the lessons we should learn. We've implemented several measures to provide greater assurance and protection to householders under our new Warm Homes Nest programme. That includes ensuring governance through financial monitoring, project boards and compliance meetings, introducing KPIs for complaints received, reducing potential conflicts of interest by letting separate contracts for our advice and referral provider and our delivery provider. So they're just a few examples, but I can assure you that I take this very seriously, as you do, and I think as obviously the residents do as well. It's important we build that trust back up.
Carlin Thomas.
Well, in communities across North Wales, I've seen the difference the funding's made, whether it's enveloping works, insulation, new roofs, windows, doors. I visited a lady in Anglesey in a scheme, shelter accommodation. She was blind, and the difference the work had made to her health and well-being, being warm in that house, and another lady who suffered from CPOD. And she said the difference it was making to her health as well, being in a warm home, was really good. And I've directed people to the Nest scheme as well, who needed new boilers. I know that there's been issues with the air source heat pumps, of people not knowing how to use them properly. So I know Clwyd Allen actually invested in an advisor who was able to go around all the homes that they've built, the new council house, social housing as well, where these are in place, to advise people how to use them properly, so they're used effectively. So I just my question to you is, how are services signposting people so that they can have this impartial advice, and how successful have they been in finding solutions? So to my experience, it has been really useful and really good in where I've been, but if you give me more information on that, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for highlighting the good practice. And it is really important we share that, isn't it? And also just it is quite something, when you think about all the people that have been helped. Sometimes, we know that there are challenges in areas or for individuals. But, as I said, Nest scheme has helped more than 82,000 people on lower income households by installing those measures in their homes, and even more have been helped to get those free energy efficiency advice. So, I think I'm keen that as many people get the support through that free energy efficiency advice phone line as possible, and I'm sure everybody else is in terms of helping to promote that. Absolutely, air source heat pumps, say they're not it's really good to hear about that people are being employed to sort of make sure people know how to use it, and I think that's a really good example of where we can share that best practice, because it is important if they are there that people, and then it sort of demystifies as well some of the things around air source heat pumps. In terms of advice services, I think the separation between the advice service and the delivery is an important element of the scheme. Again, that goes back to helping to build trust. And officials have been working with our contractors, local authorities and other partners to ensure that new demand-led scheme is complementary to other energy efficiency and fuel poverty schemes. So our delivery partner, Energy Saving Trust, provide free independent energy saving advice to all those households, as I say, and this new programme is a more joined-up approach with complementary schemes to maximise the benefits to all Welsh citizens.
Ac yn olaf, Lle Griffith.
Finally, Lle Griffith. Thank you very much, Tipper Lywydd.
Bit of a reality check here. You know, let's not think that Wales is doing a good job in this space. I have to say that the Future Generations Commission is reminding us, the previous Commissioner and the present Commissioner, is reminding us how woefully short the investment going into this area is vis-à-vis the level of challenge that's facing us. We still have the most energy inefficient housing stock in Western Europe. And whilst there are good things happening, they're not happening at the scale or at the pace that's required to really make an impact in this sphere. Now, you've mentioned, you know, the government can bring quite a bit of influence to bear within social housing and the public sector, but of course private sector is a very difficult challenge, and the Environment Committee has suggested in the past using the land transaction task as leverage, if you like, to encourage action in the private sector. For example, if somebody improves energy efficiency in their home before selling the house, then they could well receive some sort of reduced land transaction tax. Or if within 12 or 18 months they improve the energy efficiency of the house after buying a house, then they receive a rebate. Now, that's been ruled out by the government so far, but I would ask whether you'd be willing to consider that, because it is a real leverage, I think, that the government has to try and influence change in the private sector.
Diolch, Leo, and thank you for the work you've done in this area as well. I know as previous chair of the Climate Change Committee as well. And I think that, you know, the points you raised around the challenge is absolutely, you know, I don't take it for granted. I'm talking about the really positive things today, but, you know, as you've mentioned, some of the figures that you raise around the challenge that is ahead is huge. You know, I do understand that. You know, but I think it's important to remember what we are doing and how we are making progress. You know, absolutely you know, keen to see, always keen to look at what more we can do, what more schemes are available. As I mentioned, the Green Homes Wales scheme, you know, the Development Bank of Wales, that's doing something that I think will be very positive, and I'm very keen to look at the impact that has on homeowners. In terms of other support we provide to, say, for example, private landlords, you know, one of the things around Leasing Scheme Wales, you know, which is a recent scheme, that is about bringing properties back up to standard to improve the energy efficiency of the homes, as well as trying to get more homes in the whole scheme of things. So, you know, there are things we're doing. I don't underestimate the challenge, but, you know, we are looking, you know, we're doing what we can within the envelope that we have. And I think, you know, it's important to remember those people who are being helped at the moment as well.